Judges have said it many times that this 370 is temporary. Okay, agreed. But then, how do you remove this temporary one? What is the method of removing? And what does the Constitution itself say on removing? That's a very simple question. So, this is temporary and it can be removed, or maybe it should be removed. So, how is that supposed to be removed? Very simple question. We are examining the basics. It says this one, removing special status 373. Special status can be ended only with the recommendation of the Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly. Only Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly. That's clear, Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly. Then the question was, this Constituent Assembly was not there. It was dissolved in 1957 because it did the work of the Constitution and it was no longer there, like Indian Constituent Assembly. So, what does that mean? Definitely, you cannot say because the Constituent Assembly was not there, nothing can be done about it. So, I mean to say that one can see how this particular provision can be worked out. I suggest these alternatives. Number one, create one Constituent Assembly. What prevents Supreme Court asking the government create one Constituent Assembly? Very simple. And let Constituent Assembly recommend. Let it recommend. This is one. Second, if one thinks that Constituent Assembly is a very lengthy exercise and now we are too busy to go through that, you can say next elections are for Constituent Assembly as well as state legislature. So it can work as a Constituent Assembly and it will pass a resolution and it will be a state legislature also. So it means you just need to have elections. That's all. Constituent Assembly will be created and state legislature. So that's how many times it is done. Indian elections took place much later, independence, but before that it was Constituent Assembly based result that India depended on to form the government. So this is one. And third is, so this is an important thing. When the Constituent Assembly is not there, state legislature can do a limited function of Constituent Assembly. What does it mean? State legislature is anyway involved in constitutional amendment. State legislature amends. Like union legislature is involved in amending Indian Constitution. So the link between the state legislature and the constituent assembly, is this. Legislature does the amendment and often with some higher majority. So when legislature is doing something with a superior majority, then it is amending the constitution. It means in a limited way it is working as a constituent assembly. It is not equal. Why it is not equal? Because constituent assembly is the basis of all the institutions. Usually constituent assembly is the basis of all the institutions. So constituent assembly is much bigger than legislature. But then because the legislature can amend the constitution with a special majority, you can use legislature as a constituent assembly, requiring that legislature should do this with much higher majority, maybe higher than the special majority. Okay, so it means superior or very higher majority of legislature can be seen as acting on behalf of constituent assembly. Okay, which means the court could have said, keep the same legislature and get superior majority to act as a constituent assembly. Okay, so which means there are many options. Number one, create a new one. Number two, use the state legislature but ask it to approve with a higher majority. Because constituent assembly was not there. Because the spirit of this 373 is that people should agree for major changes. That is the spirit. But what did the government do? Instead of seeking a higher level of agreement from the people, what it did was, it said constituent assembly equals state legislature. This is not true. And state legislature dissolved. And it says state legislature powers goes to union legislature. Okay, this is wrong. And so union legislature decides. See, look, this is not moving, this is not taking higher consent. This is removing any role to the people. This removes any role to Kashmiris. Okay, so my summary is that 373 says constituent assembly is not there, but constituent assembly means higher form of consent from the people. Form a constituent assembly going by the letter, or use the state legislature's superior majority. But what the government did is remove the state legislature role through variety of provisions. Here president's rule, the governor's rule, president's rule, finally used to exclude Kashmiris in determining their fate, which is against the constitution. And this is happening when there is a explicit prohibition of using 368 to amend 370, which means it is an explicit provision that 368 cannot be used to amend, which means Parliament cannot amend this. Okay, so It is against this background that this particular changes took place. I would say that this is fraud on Constitution. This fraud government chose to initiate. Okay, and Supreme Court is complicit in perpetuating this fraud on the Constitution. Thank you.